down. You're not going to be as good as they think you are, or as you think they are, because they think you think you are. You could die of coughing. So these are the types of obstacles that come up that can hurt our performance. There can also be our good old buddy, general anxiety, right? Social anxiety, right? So if you're a failure or winning, you just don't want everybody staring at you while you're fighting. Right? You guys can all turn away and just let the two of us fight. We'll just be honest about it. You know, nobody look, right? That feeling of being up in front, being up before me. Oh, if I win, they're going to call me up in court. Oh God, that'd be the worst. Maybe I'll lose this fight, so I'm going to court, right? But general social anxiety, right? And this statistically tends to affect you much more in tournaments than a park day or in sparring, right? And it also tends to affect women more than men. It also affects you, again, in that tournament more than sparring, it's in those individual events rather than team events, right? It may be, yeah, if I field my unit at, well, man versus dead, but whatever your favorite, like, team-based event is, right? You're like, yeah, it's great, you go out every time, crush the team, we're dominant, yeah! You're like, okay, after that, there's a one-on-one tournament. Thank you, right? Moving from that group behavior to that solo behavior for a lot of people brings up that anxiety. And now, on the subject of general anxiety, I'm not a psychologist, right? I have one psychologist on my committee, the other three are computer scientists, because that's what I am. I am not qualified to help you with your general anxiety. That's a psychologist and therapist. Right? I can give you some stuff for your coping therapies, but if you suffer from anxiety, don't be like, well, I'm done with therapy, Glen helped me out, right? I mean, you said it's a funny joke, but keep going to therapy, right? And so, also if you're in therapy is great. These can be things that you're like, hey, I heard about this compassionate emotional care. Is that a thing I can do? Can you help me get at that? Is that a thing to work with whatever we're working here in my therapy? Right? So, I want to preface that, none of us are psychologists. I know you're not a psychologist. Okay. Like, I don't actually know what you do for a living. Okay. So you give people despair. So that is our kind of our general obstacles. I've been kind of monologuing. We're going to talk about like what obstacles have you faced, or obstacles you've noticed other people have come up with as far as mental.
I'm still reeling from your comment about like matching previous performance. I think one of my focus, like personal foibles in competition, is like if I do something really good, I'm like, okay, it's gotta be like that every time now. I gotta do something like even to top that, and then you get like these. I definitely have struggles with like. I got my warlord a number of years ago, and when I get sent into the tournament, and it feels bad. It's not like a reasonable position, but I'm definitely a bad goalpost.
My struggles, actually, I've done a lot of work on my mental game, so my struggles are not as bad, especially when I first got my warlord, right? I was like, oh God, I cannot suck it up today. I have to win this tournament. If I get second place, they'll think I'm a terrible warlord and I don't deserve it, right? And that took me a while to get over. It didn't take me as long as it takes some other, because it's a common feeling for warlords who get whatever their threshold is they're looking for, right? If you're doing Belgar, Blade Master for Greatsword, right? You get the thing, and now you have to represent the thing. And I like to think I'm so loud they left. So that for me, that is something I actually help overcome, not through anything healthy, but by winning a lot of tournaments. Before I accepted my warlord, I had won 10 kingdom level tournaments. Because I won 3, and then I won 4, and I was like, did that 4th one count? Am I really good enough? Here's my self-talk, my negative self-talk, right? What if I suck at the next one? Well, let me win another one. Well, let me win another one. Let me win another one. And my friends were like, Glen, stop fucking up the whole system and accept your warlord. I'm like, oh no, I'm not good enough. Right? And it's something that happens a lot. What kind of obstacles did you do?
So one of the big ones was really identifiable, what you talked about before. Was I remember my first team tournament that I was in, I made it to the brackets for a single sword. And for the first time in my fighting career, there were like 200 people who were staring at me. And I was like, I got annihilated right off the bat. And I've gotten better about that since for sure. But yeah, I've absolutely seen a lot of people who have the difficulties with, am I good enough to be a warlord? If I lose this tournament, am I a real warlord? Like that stuff absolutely happens all the time. Or our up-and-comers talk about how many orders do you think my fighting is with? Like, well, where are you placing in tournaments? Right? Like that's you gotta be my response overall. There's no specific bar. We may have some dissension there. We may have some dissension there.
Yeah, I just don't like that. I was thinking of when people get really, it's a tangent or when people get really thinking about this person was like their six, they like a kid or where it's like, hey, I'll get down. That makes no sense. I do think I'm ready for my fourth brother. We're like second level. There's I can move right in my classroom, in my classroom. Let me just get that.
Like on a personal level, I haven't had to overcome a ton with that. Like I said, I have a pretty deep background in different types of sports and stuff like that. So when I came into Amcard, I was very comfortable losing already, and that was a huge part of just being comfortable working my way into the system.
Did you play team sports or individual sports?
Team sports, volleyball and water polo was a lot of it. So.
It's interesting. I actually came from a team sport background, so I played sports my whole life, but always team sports. And it was that isolation of, now it's not my team. My team was just fine, right? I won the gold. But if it's just me, any loss is 100% Glen, right? And 100% Glen's not good enough. If your team loses, especially if it's usually your buddies, now you're like, we lost because Bob sucks, he's the worst. You're like, Bob is cool, shit happens, we all have off days, man, you're still great, right? We tend to be nicer to other people than ourselves. So, which leads us into our next step, right? How do we start this? How do we start doing this mental training? And the first step is adjusting your mental attitude. Right? There's a difference between self-compassion and self-esteem. So, the key differences here is self-compassion is how you treat other people, and self-esteem is how you've been treating yourself. Right? Is a short way of saying that. Right? But self-compassion, right? That is being kind to yourself, right? Understanding yourself in the event of failures and inadequacies versus, which is where self-esteem often comes in, harsh self-judgment and criticism. So how many people here have done poorly in a tournament, you were practicing and you kept missing the shot that you wanted to get, and you left and you thought, man, I suck. All right, not good, don't do that. Would you, if your friend did that and they were bummed, if you're like, yeah, Bob, you suck. How many people would say that to their buddy? Right? The ones who would take it as a joke? Yeah, the ones who would be like, aha, good. The ones who find that sense, you're right. But if they were actually bummed and they're like, man, I'm not sure I'm going to keep fighting, you wouldn't say, you should probably quit Amcard, right? Or Bellegarde or Daggett, right? No, you would practice compassion towards them, right? Why are you not treating yourself at least at that same level, right? And that's where this comes into, right? It's seeing your experiences as part of a larger human experience, right? Versus isolating and separating yourself, right? How many people, after they've had that negative self-talk, felt bad of themselves, have then wanted to not hang with other people and just kind of go off on their own? Some people, right? Some people are just like, I feel very hurt and seen and don't want to be looked at now. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So these are the differences, right? And so you don't want to hold your painful thoughts and feelings just inside. You don't want to overly identify them, right? It's okay to accept them, right? You have negative thoughts. It's not like, no, I just won't think them, right? It's kind of like if you're mad and someone says, well, stop being angry, right? Why are you so sad? Just cheer up. Gee, thanks, that helped a lot, right? Hand me a kidney, please. So don't try to say, I don't have these feelings. What you do is you acknowledge these feelings, right? You say, okay, I'm bummed about that not working out. That's okay to feel bummed, right? But then, what would you say to your friend? But that is not part of who I am, right? And that's between self-esteem, right? We talk about self-esteem, and men are especially prone to this, right? It's a high evaluation of yourself. It's tying your evaluation of yourself to your performance, right? I am a badass and cool because I'm a warlord who wins tournaments. That's a terrible attitude. It's what happens when Kato comes by and beats me in a tournament, right? Now I'm crushed, right? So we don't want to build our self-esteem on our accomplishments and on what we're doing and tie it to that, because that makes it very brittle. Then when something goes wrong, you don't have it to fall back on because you're built on that success and being this, I'm the great fighter. And we're not always the great fighter. Take the best fighter in Amgard, right? Cannon. And he's going to lose the tournament. And then he's going to be like, oh, now I'm not the greatest fighter in Amgard anymore. My self-esteem is crushed, right? Self-esteem versus self-compassion. Self-compassion is easier to establish. It's a little hard initially to be nice to yourself, right? A lot of us are trained culturally to be harsh on ourselves, right? That's bad. I'm not a psychologist, but it's still bad. Even I know that, right? But self-compassion, once you establish it, right, it's easier to maintain because you don't have to improve it. You don't have to win a tournament to have self-compassion. You do need to win a tournament to do the cool thing, to build that self-esteem. It's more resistant to failure, right? You can still be nice to yourself if you have a bad day on the field, right? You go out there and you get smoked by this person you thought you were going to keep, like that keeps like a mean way, like, yeah, I'm going to go out there, they ask questions, I'm going to show them what they're doing wrong, and you can't, because every time you try and set up, they just murder you. You're like, oh, I'm terrible at this is rough. No. You'd be like, oh, well, okay, we all have bad days, miserable days. Maybe they're just doing really well, right? Maybe now Steve's, you're like, good job, Steve, you're kicking ass, right? We were going to talk about this thing, but it looks like you've largely fixed it. Self-compassion reduces that fear of failure, because if you fail, it's not a hit on you, it's not a hit on who you are, right? Just like if Big Head's in a tournament, right? We're hanging out, and he loses the tournament, right? We're not going to think less of him. We're still going to go out and have root beers later. So it's not going to, like, it doesn't impact your friendship when they don't perform on the tournament. At least I hope not, right? So it reduces downward social comparisons, another common thing people do. How many times has someone heard, raise your hand if you've heard, someone kind of putting down another fighter to try and make themselves seem like a better fighter? Yeah, happens a lot. And that is large part, but at least in part, how big of a part depends on the person, their personality, other things. They could just be a jerk. But often it's tied to self-esteem. They're trying to put other people down to push their self-esteem up because their performance and their view of themselves depends on their self-esteem. Right? So it encourages that what's called downward social comparison. Right? I'm better than you because you don't deserve to be a fourth order warrior. You're only a third order warrior, right? Or whatever. Second.
Is downward social comparison always unhealthy?
Yes. I mean, unless you're comparing someone with terrible, like, thank God I'm not a murderer like that guy.
I try to compare myself to medieval peasants because I think my life is much better than theirs.
Yeah, I mean, if you just like if you're using that as a positive thing and it's a factual comparison, yes. But usually it's more of an emotion comparison that are the ones that are negative and toxic, and you're putting it down. Because you're not saying peasants were stupid morons. You're like, man, those poor peasants had it rough. I'm glad I don't. My life's actually pretty good. Right? Those differences between those stupid peasants couldn't even figure out how to get a smartphone. No wonder they couldn't get anywhere, right? So the way you do that comparison is important. So no, I guess it's not always negative. If you're pushing them down and you're making a downward slope in that comparison, that's when it becomes negative. Another potential pitfall of using the self-esteem approach is it makes you more self-centered. You're seeing everything in terms of you, and it's all about your self-esteem. It also reduces your sense of confidence, right? If you have self-compassion, you can have an increased sense of confidence because your failures don't make you feel incompetent. You're just like, oh, well, we all make mistakes, we all have bad days. Reduces anxiety, increases intrinsic motivation, in other words, internal motivation to do things, because you're not being used to all when you fail. So, Mike, are you more self-compassionate or more self-esteem?
I think if I might say the definitions correctly, probably more I think that as I've gotten older, I think I started with a self-esteem, self-motivation style where I'm like, I'm the best, I'm the most jacked, I'm going to hit these guys 100,000 times, I'm going to win everything, and then as you accumulate wins, it gets easier to score that kind of thing. I think it's just like, it's definitely like a toxic masculinity kind of thing sometimes where you're like up and gaslight because it feels real good, but then it's like obviously you're gonna blow your brain out if you keep doing that. I think as I've gotten older, I've switched more to a self-compassion type of style. Or I do like a fight journal. I'll write notes between brackets and tournaments. Is what I did this past one. I've done like a lot of journaling and that kind of thing. And I'll try to like list down like just things that I did well or things that I could work on and try to just tether myself back to the reality of the situation. Like, oh, you weren't like prepared for this thing, or you made this choice. Anybody would make that choice and just figure it out. So I think I've shifted back over to a more self-compassion style because I'm not like as physically fit as I was, so I get tendonitis at the drop of a hat anymore, so I can't like base all that stuff off of like my physical needs. So I think I've switched to that style for the past 10 years or so.
What's your kind of mental approach?
So, very, very heavily on the self-compassion side of things. Talibor specifically, as just a little shout out to the kingdom, has been really, really good about celebrating each other's successes. So that like top tournament finishers tend to be celebrating with like if I take second, I can be celebrating with the winner their win. And then so that is something that is very, very common with people, just like been actively trying to work on. And so I think we've seen a lot of shifting from kind of the self-esteem aspect of things, some of the toxic masculinity aspect of things, towards an environment where everyone is building each other up as much as possible, and it's really great to see it being great.
All right, any questions so far? All right, so let's go out to the audience. Who has a moment of, I'm sure we all have a lot of moments of bad self-esteem, but a moment of self-compassion, when something you go right, and instead of being like, Glenn, you idiot, 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 you treat yourself positively. You treat yourself the way you want to treat your friends. So, who's got one of those to share? Yes?
There was a time when I was losing a lot in a specific way, and I was getting really mad and frustrated, and I sat down, and I went, okay, why am I getting mad and frustrated? And I worked through the emotions and also what was happening within the fight that was going wrong. I was able to sit down and just go, I'm upset because I'm not doing well, because I think I should be doing this way, and that is unreasonable of myself to think that for myself. And just work through it. So I was able to get back up and fight without being angry and mad instead of just being mad and wailing and going, why am I not learning?
Excellent, excellent, good work. Anyone else?
Don't hide.
Don't hide.
I thought of the idea actually when I was actively being my warlord from Dickens. Yeah, because I was thinking, I was like, it hadn't really struck me like how to be a person post-warlord. I hadn't thought of it. And I started thinking about back in the day when people would duck out or show up the next day or something, and be at their top of their energy levels, and they were the best on the field and stuff. And I thought about like at the time I always wanted to fight constantly. And then as I get a little bit older, my body's falling apart. Fighting's old, just shit doesn't work. I thought about it, I was like, I'm not gonna change it. I'm gonna, I could be out there and see my handstand, feel like shit. I'm still gonna take the field. I don't care. If people want to call me a low tier warlord or whatever they want to call me, I don't care. I'm gonna be who I am. I love fighting. I'm gonna do it, whether or not I'm on the top of the game or not. And I guess I'm just gonna let any criticism of that be yours just go well. I got a tattoo to remind myself.
All right. Well, let's continue on here. So that's step one, right? Self-compassion or self-esteem, right? And that's really important. Also, I have notes on all the stuff, so if there's more stuff you want to talk about or find out about, hit me up on Facebook, Glen Province, or maybe Glen MOB. But I'm on Facebook, right? I'm friends with a bunch of these people. So if you're like, hey, there's a Glen MOB or something, he's friends with a bunch of these people, that's me. Hit me up, I can send you my notes, I can send you a little more research. All the research that I have cited, I have the papers, so you don't have to worry about them behind research paywalls and stuff, so you can read them. There's also things like the self-compassion inventory, a little test you can take to see where you fall on the scale of self-compassion versus self-esteem. Okay? And that again is not a thing to beat yourself up on. Oh no, I scored poorly in self-compassion, I'm terrible. No, you're doing it wrong, right? oh, I start morally self-compassion. That's something I can work on. I can become better, right? That's our approach. So, the second part of this, right? Accept reality, right? And that comes in a couple ways, right? First of all, accept that, like, a tournament. A lot of people are like, oh, don't worry, don't stress about the tournament. Tournaments are stressful, right? I mean, there's come a certain point, right? Oh, it's spicy, right? And so I was like, you saw tournaments stressful? And he's like, I've lost so many tournaments in my life. Why would I be stressed? And I'm like, oh, I never thought of that. In the times I play Amber, I've probably lost maybe 1,000 tournaments, but certainly in the hundreds, right? More than 100 tournaments I have lost over all the years I've been playing, right? So what's one more? But then reality, tournaments can be stressful. Like I've reached a point where tournaments usually aren't stressful because might have lost another one. There's my 132nd loss, whatever. But still can be stressful, right? And certainly when I was counting up, real stressful. Acknowledge that. Don't be like, it's not stressful. It's stressful, accept, acknowledge reality. Don't try and deny reality, right? Don't be like, don't be sad. Don't be stressed. I'm stressed. This turn a stressful situation. That's fine. How do I move forward positively from there rather than just trying to deny reality or bury my head in something? You're nervous, that's okay. Also reality, forget the perfect game, right? No one's gonna have the perfect game, right? Except actually, if you guys watch hockey, the Dallas Stars, Brantagen, perfect game. Last game of the series, he gets a hat trick, crushes the team that traded him away the previous year. That's a perfect game. But other than that, no one is a perfect game. And that was his one for his whole life, right? Don't waste your perfect game on Amber. Do something else. But my point here is, don't, like, you're gonna make mistakes. The guy who wins the tournament made mistakes, right? Even if you crush, you sweep the tournament, you win every category, right? And you've got the, the perfect score, whatever, still not a perfect game, right? Accept the mistakes are gonna happen. They're fine, right? Don't be like, must have the perfect game. And then next thing of this, right? This is a perfect game. Own your successes, right? This is a common problem, right? Statistically, it's more often women than men that have this problem that are often very good about, I'm the best, I will hit everybody 1,000 times. But if you do something cool, you did something cool, accept that, right? If you won, well, I only won because you didn't do well, you know, no, you won because you did a great job, right? So you can be proud of that, right? You don't want to be arrogant about it, like, I'm better than you, kick your ass in, right? But accept that you won, be like, yeah, you did a great job, right? Own your successes. And that is really important. Who here has had that feeling where you won something, but then people were like, oh, good job, you tried to downplay it, or you didn't really feel like it was your success? Right? Yeah, I see a bunch of hands. Right? I see some bashful hands. It is me, stop calling me afterward. And again, these are things that's okay to have done. It doesn't make you a bad person, it doesn't mean you're a failure or your brain is broken, right? This just means, hey, it's another thing we can work on improving, right? And really, the more stuff you have to improve on, the better you can make your mental game. Because if I go through all this stuff, you're like, nope, I have none of those symptoms. But the mental game is not great. Well, I don't know how to help you then, right? So kind of the more things you find where that is me, that's another area you can up your game. Right? So think about it like, oh, I've got another thing that I can do that. So owner success is hugely important. And then the flip side of that is be coachable, right? What people call empty your cup, right? I can't tell you the number of times sometimes they've come to me to ask for fighting advice, like, hey, Glen, I get spars and I need some advice. I fight them, I give them some advice, and then they argue with me about the advice I gave them, right? Well, you were only hitting me because I was doing this thing, and I was like, yes, and it was getting you killed. And they're like, yeah, but normally it doesn't, you know? And I'm like, then why did you come to me if you don't want my feedback, right? Like, it's one thing if my feedback's trash, then just accept it gracefully, right? Because I've gotten trash feedback from people. I cross-game to other games where I'm just a random newbie, and sometimes I've gotten some really terrible advice, right? Because I'm like, sure, it's a different game, but still the same body mechanics still work, footwork's still the same. You just told me, you know, what? But I don't go, nah, no. I'm like, okay, thanks for the feedback. I appreciate you taking time to talk to me about it, right? That can vary, and again, this apply more to women than men. Some of you are probably getting a lot of unsolicited feedback. You're like, thanks for the help, dude. You're the 30-second guy to go over here and help me. But other than that, especially if you've solicited advice, accept it gracefully, right? And try to find the nugget of good in it, right? Because there probably is. In fact, something I tell, I worked at Texas A&M University, this is something I tell my undergrads, right? A lot of times they're like, oh, I'm taking this class, my doesn't know anything, I'm not learning anything in this class. But really, he has a PhD and doesn't know anything you don't know. right? And some professors are terrible teachers, right? But what I tell them is, he knows stuff you don't know. Go through this class and look for the nuggets you don't know, because there will be something you can pull out of that, right? Same thing you get advice, right? Look for that. When I get advice from people, even if I'm, someone like, I don't know if I believe that, I'm sort of looking like, okay, why are they saying that? Like, where's that coming from? Be coachable. What was your most uncoachable experience?
My most uncoachable experience.
Yeah, the person just totally coachable, and why was that?
Is it uncoachable? Like I couldn't coach them because if someone tried to coach me.
You couldn't coach them.
I couldn't coach them.
Yes.
Let me search the database. You guys make that question
Yeah.
first.
I follow the answer. So I'm not going to name specifics because someone here would know the person. But I was at a fighter practice, and it was a shorter fighter who was talking about, like, I'm just having so much trouble, like, closing on big head. And so myself and a couple other people were like, okay, so what you probably want to try to do is get into either an attack to get him to defend and then close, or you're going to have him attack you, you're going to block him, this, that, and that. And they had the person argue with me for probably like 15 minutes on how that hasn't been working. So like that must not be the way to do it. And then I was just like, oh, okay, best of luck. Like I don't know what else to tell you. Hopefully you have some success out there.
I think my coaching style, I try to not. I feel like I don't run into a lot of uncoachable moments. My style is I really only tell people to add stuff. I don't tell people to stop doing specific things. Or if it's not working, I typically try to say, why don't you add this? And I think just phrasing it that way makes it so that people don't feel offended by it and want to argue with me. So I can't remember the last time that happened, but it did because I'm offering that experience. I can't remember like a concrete time. It's been so long since I've dealt with that. I think it's usually like if you do have to be really sensitive about egos when you give them criticism, but I think on some level, I feel like it's kind of fair because if you're fighting people who are like kind of going to come to you for coaching advice afterwards, they might like already be kind of scared of you. So if you give them harsh feedback, a lot of people will just jump to like defend themselves. So I'm just aware of that just approach in a specific way. So that's it does happen. Not that personally, that doesn't happen to me.
But you've seen it happen to other people.
Yeah, I've seen it. Not lesser coaches.
So that's kind of our foundations, right? Or sorry, our what do I call it? Blah blah blah. Step one. Those are the mental items you can adjust, right? Kind of before foundations, the stuff we need to do, kind of gathering our materials, right? And so step two is the mental approach foundation. What can we do, right? Okay, I've emptied my cup, I try to be coachable, I own my successes, but how do I put this in practice? What can I do? And so the first thing we can do is control the controllables, right? Be aware of what you control and what you can't control. Because, for example, if I'm fighting, who's the cleanest fighter right now? Ark. Who here does Ark's video? Who does Beldak? He is probably the cleanest fighter I've ever come across, right? I have never seen him slough a shot. I have seen him take shots that didn't hit him because he thought they might have, right? And it was for a little while, because I used to fight with him a lot, and it was something I try and like crank him. I try and purposely miss a shot that didn't hit him, and see if he would take it. And he did. But anyway, he's been my example. If I'm fighting Ark, and he's decided that today is a new day, and today he's going to slough me, right? I can't control that, right? I can't stop him from sloughing. I control my response to that. I control whether I get mad. I control whether I keep fighting him or not, right? I have a lot of things I can do to control, on my end, things I control, but I can't control what, does he take his shot? I guess that's the thing, does he take his shots, right? So I don't fixate on that. I focus on the things I can control. If a tournament is coming up, I don't want to think about, okay, well, what if I pull Tato first? That's going to be terrible because he's really good. Okay, what if I pull Tato first and then Big Head second? Why I can beat Tato? That could be terrible, right? I can't control the order in which things happen, right? So I'm not going to worry about it. What I can control is Am I prepared, right? With my gear, am I going through we'll talk about coping strategies. Am I coping strategies, right? Am I hydrated, right? Those things I control. So those things you control them. But the things you can't control, there's no point in worrying about them. Now, I just said you can't tell somebody not to worry about something, but what you can do is shift your worry, right? Because you can't worry about everything at once, right? You can't, like, if you're like, I'm terrified of these 7 things, like, what about spiders? Like, well, now I'm scared of spiders. Like, so afraid of scorpions? Okay, now I'm thinking about scorpions. But what about spiders, right? You can't be afraid of everything at once. You get a picture, you're like, I'm terrified of spiders, right? You can't stress about everything, right? If you're going to fixate on something, which again, we don't want to do, but we control, some shit's something we can control. And now I'm like, oh, I'm anxious about hydration. Oh, I've got my Gatorade. Problem solved. Excellent. So, kind of building on that, what are some controllables that you look at controlling in situations that you might find stressful, either in the past or the present?
I've really been thinking this about my tournament prep. I have like specific snacks that I eat. I make sure that I have like a lot of them. I have specific water that I drink. I always drink kiwi strawberries as well, getting back to the successful state of mind. It's just something about having the same flavor that I like. I always make sure my gear is packed and organized. Like in the bag, it's all ready to go the day before my clothes are laid out. Like I try to, even if it's like not a super critical thing to control, just being able to exercise all of that control for like just pre-tournament prep, like making sure that you are on site, that you are there early. The last tournament, I got there a full hour early, and I was lucky that I did that because it was super hard to fly, so I helped everyone else find it. That was a mistake. I should have let those suckers go ahead. I did find it anyway. But like, it's just anything that you can control, just making sure that you don't have to worry about it later is, I think, a good strategy for managing that anxiety. So you just have to worry about, like, oh, am I going to like planning or plan?
I'm pretty barbaric and basic on this one. So I just want to make sure that I stretch beforehand, and I try to socialize with people so that I can't like fight the brain. I don't want to worry about the things I can't control, and I just fill that void with chatting with people and having a good time before the tournament starts. And that's how I do it.
There was a while that you were purposely denying yourself sleep because you fought better when you were.
No, okay, so that wasn't on purpose, but that was a weird thing to notice. Mostly that was at events where like I'm just not sleeping anyway. But yeah, there was a while there where it was like I wonder if I should do that. I think I better if I just slept less. And then I cut that thought process off pretty quickly, but it was funnier than that.
Who here had the thing they stress about during tournaments or other situations that they could control? Could. You could control.
Hydration. I really, like, I was told, and I don't know how sure it is that hydration starts like 3 days out from an event, from like a specific thing, so I try to like get like the optimal amount of hydration, like 3 days ago when I have certain injuries, and I try to like focus on the day. And that's something I can
Okay. Yes.
I think being like prepped with your gear and snacks and water got really stressful. So something I did was just really minimize my stuff, so I'm not making 3 or 4 drinks stacked pretty hard and then feel over and over.
Okay. All right. Yes, in the back.
Earlier this year we were preparing for a tournament out of state, and part of that for us was preparing basically mentally trying to outdoor activities stuff, as well as making sure our good condition we had problem during riding either the socks or the shoes as opposed to riding the boots. So the instructors looked at it, okay, well, the next week we'll be riding snow boots. Right before the
get stressed thinking that my wife's gonna get mad at me for traveling and have to take care of her kid by herself. So the weekend before and the weekend after, I try to do everything I can for her and give her like days off and take care of the kid and get her, cook everything and make stuff snacks for her.
Good. All right, who here's got something that stresses them out they can't control that worries them during tournaments or similar situations? No one stresses out during tournaments. Okay.
Jordy said it, like getting matched up with the toughest people in the first time.
Okay. All right.
I'm getting stressed out that like if I'm not being at my best or if I'm not like winning or performing up to like unrealistic standard, that I'm smiling first and be like something.
Okay, I'm gonna go behind you to him first and then go back to you.
By somebody from the road, out on it. Every time I go to the tournament, it goes well.
Okay.
Getting stressed that my new guys are not letting out all the way at home, get better and fighter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, not an uncommon fear though. Like you've got good company in that.
Sometimes really weird, like you're in a circumstance, like last year where the boundaries against like laser balls, we were hard out, we lost your arm.
That's the weirdest tournament ever.
I just got to adapt to it, but it's really says, yeah, I don't want to go near that wall at all.
Okay. All right.
Weapon destroying, because that would be good.
Now it's a dagger.
Chronic injury flare or chronic illness flare.
Okay. All right. Good. Yeah, so a lot of things we can't control, right? And it doesn't mean you're bad for being stressed about them. It means you need to have a coping strategy to take that stress and that anxiety and move past it, right? So I can tell you, well, just don't be anxious, right? So that worked. I was become a therapist and I charge $1,000 for my magic cure. Oh, you're depressed. Stop being depressed. Ah, you're lazy. Stop being lazy. You have executive function. Be more functional. Yeah. So, control the controls, right? And part of when we can do that is look at process, not outcomes, right? When I fought, did I do my best? Did I do the thing I wanted to try? Not did it work, did I try it, right? Maybe I want to practice dark siding people. I'm like, I'm going to throw a dark side, right? I do it, I step in, I whack him in the shin, and then they stab me in the chest. Well, that didn't work. Okay, that's an outcome, it didn't work. Did I try it? Did I go to do the thing? Did I work on the process? Yes. Right? Process over outcome. That is critical to helping shift to a more self-compassionate and a more goal-oriented rather than just accomplishment-oriented mindset. Question? Okay, I thought I saw a hand coming up.
This makes that
Oh, that's fair. Yeah. Why that go around? I don't know why. So process and outcomes. Don't let challenge be everything, right? Easy and winning is fun, right? It's okay to be like, man, I've been out here training hard and stuff, and I lost a lot, and I like to win. Winning's fun, right? That's part of the reason people play games of sports because they want to win, right? Most people don't go out like, I'm going to start playing hockey. Why? I like losing. I'm going to go be a goalie, let the puck get in, I'll get hit a few times, maybe somebody will knock me over, that's what I'm here for. Nah, right? There's probably some people out there, but the majority of people, they do because winning's fun, right? They enjoy the competitive part, but the competing and then winning, right? It's okay to take a break and be like, I've been training this thing, but the dark side always works. You get dark sided, right? Or I've been fighting these guys who are really good, and I've learned some stuff, or I haven't learned some stuff, but I tried to learn some stuff. Again, process that outcome, right? But now I'm going to go over the easy end of the ditch and get some wins so that I remember that I do have some skills and that I can get some wins and feel good about myself, right? Like, these aren't bad things. It's when they're taken to extremes, right? The winning should not be the basis for your self-identity or your view of success. But it's okay to get some wins just to remember, to remind yourself, okay, I can do these things. Get kind of a realistic mindset, realistic establishment of where you stand, right? That's okay. Another thing, remove negative self-talk. Who here has done poorly in a tournament or in practice or sparring and then be like, Glen, I'm saying like probably your name here, you suck. Man, you're terrible at this. Why are you doing so badly at this? Yeah, lots of hands, right? That is a very normal thing to do. It's also a very bad thing to do, right? It gets back to this self-compassion. we don't say mean things to our friends unless that will cheer them up, right? Like I do have some friends, I'll be like, you suck that up, and they'll be like, yeah, but that'll be lighthearted, it'll relieve them, it'll break the mood, right? But if they're just bummed, I'd be like, you suck, boom, kick you while you're down, right? I'd be like, no, Jay Lee, that was a good effort, right? Someday you're gonna win a tournament, I think you've got real potential as a fighter. Remove negative self-talk. If you're going to say, I didn't do a thing, you can say, because that's a knowledge of reality, right? I went to the dark side and hit the light instead. Fine. I suck because I hit the dark side, because I hit the light and the dark side. No. I failed. No. Right? I did not complete the outcome I wanted. Fine. But failure is a negative thing, right? Sure, you didn't do it, but failure, that's really excessive, right? So think about how you think of yourself. Think about how you talk, right? Like words are the framework of thought. The words you use in your mind to describe yourself will have an impact on how you view yourself and how you view the activity you're involved in. Right? These are things that lead to burnout. These things that lead to not having fun. These things just lead to anxiety and stress. All of them are bad things. So remove negative self-talk. Final step here in our mental approach foundations is the way we set goals. Right? There's three kind of categories of goals. There's performance avoidance goals. This is where you want to avoid something happening, usually something bad. I'm going to get in this tournament and try not to lose. Right? I'm going to do single sword, I don't want to get hit. Right? I'm avoiding things. Right? These are generally things out of your control. I don't want to get hit. I don't have any control over whether Tato hits me in a tournament. Right? That is a negotiated outcome that I may or may not get hit, but there's nothing I control, right? I get a vote, but I don't necessarily get the only vote. It's certainly not the deciding vote. So, performance avoiding goals are bad, right? They're things we can't control. We're not controlling the controllables, right? And they generally are also focusing on negatives, right? Second kind of level are just performance goals. I want to accomplish this. I want to win the tournament. I want to get to the second bracket. I want to do this. And those, at first glance, seem positive. The problem is, again, they're things outside your control, right? Winning the tournament, you don't control over that, right? I mean, unless you know the reason real well, right? But other than that, you don't control over that. Getting to the second round, you may not do that, right? I'm a pretty good warlord. I've won a lot of tournaments. I can still run into Tato, get smoked, and be like, well, out in the first round, right? I don't have control over that. Right? That's not control, and I can't set that as a goal, because now I can fail a goal. Now I failed a goal, I have to reach the goal, and I have no control over it. Right? Goals need to be things we control. So that leads us to our third category, called mastery goals. That's where we're looking at our ability to do a thing well. We're looking at our skill. Can I do this thing? Can I throw a dark side? Right? Not, did it work this time? What am I doing? How am I progressing my ability to throw dark sides as a concept? Not my ability to land this dark side. Right? And then, again, that isn't a, I'm bad at dark sides. That's a, I am at level 1 of dark sides. I am at level 2, right? You know, however you want to describe that, I can land the dark side sometimes because I'm getting the mechanics down, but I tend to bend over, right? So you've got some descriptive things, right? It's about your stages of mastery in a skill or an accomplishment of a task. Right? That's how we set our goals. Questions? You guys are invited and encouraged to ask questions. Otherwise, a lot of Glen talking, which I like talking, so I'm okay with that. But I also want you guys to get as much as possible out of it. Additional comments?
Describe mastery goals again.
Yes. So mastery goals are focused on your ability to accomplish a task, not in a particular instance, but as a general thing. So you're thinking about like mastery of a skill.
Okay. So you wouldn't like have a mastery goal that applies to like competing in a tournament, and mastery goal that applies to like your practice sessions. So you're probably not trying to like master something at a tournament, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So your mastery goal wouldn't be win the tournament. It might be I want to be good at closing range.
Okay.
I want to be good at drawing, an outside wrap when I close in this way. Right? So you're looking at building the skills. Because it turns out, if you build the skills, the other stuff will come, right? Most warlords, if you took away all of their wins, so that they're still active and still want to fight tournaments, could just go get their warlord again, right? Because the skills what matters, right? Once you build the mastery, the winning and losing just kind of happens on its own. So we don't want to focus on the winning and losing, we want to focus on the mastery.
What are good ways to set and evaluate these mastery goals? If I want to be better at closing distance, how would I start that to engage that?
So
your question was, is there ways to evaluate your mastery goals, is that right? I have some thoughts on that. So like, there's a couple different ways to do that. I think that mastery goals as like a category, it's not like you don't like master something and then you're done with it. When you have a mastery goal, it's usually more like iterative or iterative, where you're like, I want to work on my footwork and I want to get these steps down. And you may decide later that, like, I want to change my stance to be a little bit wider because I feel like it lets me shoot farther when I try to launch. So you might make another mastery goal for that. I really like practice volume goals because it's not tied to like, can I throw a really good rap shot? Because like, what does really good mean, right? If you throw 10,000 rap shots, it would probably be like really good. It's the best way like that someone can describe it. Does that make sense?
That's who's actually.
Yeah. It's like, I like to make that concrete and especially visual. Like you get a practice volume goal, you can track your training sessions on, I would do it on a piece of physical paper, like on your wall or something like that. You can see the paper fill up and it makes it fun and attractive.
If I may on that too, like I come at it from a different approach. So if we're talking about getting better at closing, right? Then if you are at the end of a practice or at the end of a fighting day better at closing than you were at the beginning, you are meeting your goal. And I think a big part of the difficulty with setting mastery goals is when you are setting a mastery goal that is disguising the fact that you have a performance goal, right? And so are you getting better at closing so that you can warlord? Are you getting better at closing so you can win the tournament? Right? Because these are going to be things that are going to end up being situations where you are now actually pursuing a performance goal and you're trying to disguise that as a mastery goal, right? There's an older quote that I remember hearing, it was in your office. I didn't set out to warlord, I set out to get as good as I could at warlord along the way, right? And to me that is a relatively healthy mindset because you can actually keep that. But a lot of people will go, I want to be a warlord, so I'm going to set these mastery goals so that I can accomplish warlord. A lot of it is, I think, setting a goal that you can pursue, but in a way that is healthy for you because you don't have an end in sight for it. So, like, you can set a mastery goal of being better at closing for 10 years, right? And along the way, you can become the best closer in your park, and you can be the best closer in your kingdom, and you can get to a point that you have two other people mastering closing and you still know that there's more you can do about it. And then we get the iterative goals of talking about, okay, so I'm better at closing. So actually I've just come across this new technique and I want to be better at closing overall, but I also want to be better at this technique in closing. And now that I've gotten pretty good at closing, actually I'd like to try doing this thing, I want to be better at that. And you can keep on setting additional goals that are just self-improvement as opposed to using a mastery goal to cover for the fact that you have a performance goal and you're working towards. So
yeah, that was excellent.
Yep.
And I do want to just kind of like add on to that. It's okay to want to be a warlord. Being a warlord is awesome, right? I love being a warlord. Super great. Sword night not so great. There's meetings and stuff. But the warlord part comes with no responsibility. We do kind of expect you now as part of the culture to teach the next generation and raise them up, but no meetings, right? So it's okay to want that. It's not one of these ridiculous things like knighthood's awesome, but don't want to be a knight and work towards it. No, that's not what we're saying, right? It's totally cool to want to be a warlord. Being a warlord's great, right? But don't make that the goal, right? I became a warlord. I didn't want to be a warlord, but I really just wanted to be really good at fighting, right? I wanted to be able to go out there, and this is a bad goal, performance goal, but I want to be able to go beat any warlord in the first 10. Performance goal, shitty goal, right? But I also have the underlying goal of I love fighting and want to be good at it, right? That's a mastery. Right? And that's one reason we're talking about training class. I've never felt burned out. I've been playing Amguard forever, right? And I have never burned out, right? I love fighting, and my goals align with what I like, not things that are going to bum me out.
I would say that, I think if you don't want to be a warlord, you probably won't be one because it's like a lot of practice, right? It's weird, so I don't, you can't want to be that, but I feel like it would be virtually impossible to like commit to the amount of training load that's necessary to do that without like actively putting that. If
my opinion.
Well, I think there's people in other games who have put that training time in, don't give you warlords if you're not in our game.
Yeah, that's true.
So think about like, I think he's a warlord because he's a warlord belt, right? From out your neck. He got good without the warlord stick or incentive because he was the game that didn't have warlord. Right? He just wanted to be really good.
Well, I think at one thing you like, lower the proxy for top fighter.
Okay.
Like, starting to know what to be a top fighter.
That's true, yeah.
Just didn't have that nomenclature for it.
Fair point. Yeah, and so definitely we're not saying don't want to be a warlord. Want to be a warlord, it's awesome, right? But don't make all of your goals built on that, right? Don't make your self-worth built on that, right? Just be like, I want to get really good at fighting, and I also want to be a warlord, but I'm working on fighting, so I'm going to get good at fighting, I want to be able to do these things, I want to accomplish these things. So that's our goal setting. So next we have coping strategies. How do we deal with all the negative things we talked about, right? And again, I want to start this by saying, we're not mental health professionals, right? You can't address anxiety, you can't help your mental health. There are professionals out there. If you need that sort of help, go get it. It's awesome. It can be expensive, but you can also get good deals. Get therapy if you think you need it. We're not here to help with that. We can't. All we do is tell you, therapy's great, but yes. But with that said, in the context of amplified levels of anxiety, right, sporty type stuff, there we can help, right? The first coping strategy is a visualization of outcomes. Right? We talked about this in my training class, a little bit different, but there's a study done. It was done with 3 cohorts of people who were going to shoot baskets, right? One group actually went out every day and practiced. I think it was 30 minutes. I don't remember the exact number of the study, but they actually practiced shooting free throws, right? Second group, control group, they did nothing, right? Third group did not do anything physical, but closed their eyes and visualized shooting baskets, right? Outcome of the study. Obviously, the group that practiced had the greatest improvement. The group that didn't do any practice had no improvement. But the group that only visualized had statistically significant improvement in their free throws. Right? Visualization works. That's a concrete example. In mental training, that's a physical training thing. Mental training, a little bit different, but still the same idea of visualization. What we're going to do is visualize successful outcomes. The reason we're doing that is by visualizing what would it be like if I won a tournament? Being carried around the people's shoulders. Wait, no, that never happens. But what would happen if I won this fight? What would happen if I landed a shot? What would happen if I landed the dark side? Right? There's a couple of things. Right? One, it helps you get used to that feeling of success, right? Which can be good. 2, if you're suffering from something you mentioned earlier, this fear of success, it helps to normalize that feeling so you feel less about it, right? You're not like, if I do this, I'm going to surpass Glen in total number of lifetime dark sides. That statistic is his whole life, and he'll be ruined, right? Oh, I did that, and Glen didn't die, he's still alive, right? So visualizing successful outcomes is one of our first kind of coping strategies. Second, the other side of that, mental rehearsal for failure. What would happen if I don't win this tournament? See, okay, I'm in a tournament, fighting Tato, get smoked in the first round, in every bracket I'm out of the tournament. What happens? I'm sad, and then I go up to my friends and drink a root beer. Well, that's not too bad. That's true. Now it's more depressing. But after the 4 hours of screaming at dinner, I'll go home. Well, I'm gonna leave. Okay. But even in that scenario, after 4 hours, I'm going to go home and it's over. Right? He'll text me with all sorts of snarky comments. I'll block him. It's fine. Right? But even in this fictitious, ridiculous scenario, how bad really is that? Right? Whereas in the moment, I'd be like, oh my God, if I fail this, my life is over. You don't literally think that, but you feel that. Right? That mental rehearsal for failure can help defang, right? Remove the stinging bite of failure and make it so it's something you're worried about less. So that helps reduce avoidant behavior, right? Now I'm not avoiding failure because I'm not as afraid of it. It's kind of like something you hear about desensitization therapy, things we love phobias of, right? That is the realm of psychologists. I'm not going to tell you to do that. That's beyond this. But it's that same general concept. We don't want to rehearse too much for failure because you don't want to sit around all day, every day, just thinking about how you can fail. Because that'll bum you out, and then you'll start giving yourself anxiety, right? So not a lot, but you're like, okay, what happens if I get? If you're starting like, oh, I'm starting to get anxious. What if I lose this round? Stop for a minute, think through. Okay, what happens if I lose this round? Well, I can lose the round. I don't point. I lose the tournament. Right? Well, then what happens? Still a warlord. Still go to stupid Knights meetings. Okay, that's it. right? But that mental rehearsal failure can be very useful as a coping strategy to deal with fear of failure. The next is compassionate mind training. And I forgot what compassionate mind training is. It's from research by Gilbert and Proctor in 2006, because it says so in my notes. But I've completely spaced on what compassionate mind training is. Either of you read Gilbert and Proctor?
I Joel. Absolutely talking to those guys.
Okay.
Honestly, after 4 hours of learning, I had a lot of
Yeah, so let me give you the short version, and it's also that you talk to if you have a therapist talking about, or you can message me and I can fill in the part I forgot here. This is the problem with memorizing your entire presentation. So compassionate mind training is basically what it says. It's training yourself to be more compassionate towards yourself, right? And there's a lot of steps in it, which is what I forgot. But it is another tool in our toolkit, and we're then training ourselves to have self-compassion and self-esteem. And compassion mind training is a technique that has been validated by our buddies Gilbert and Proctor, right? And other studies since, but they're the people I cited because they did the original work and they also have the best paper. So it helps us build those things. So reach out to me. Who here has heard of cognitive behavioral therapy? A bunch of hands. Now, you don't have to raise your hand for this is too personal, right? But who here has tried it out, used an app, done it therapy, done it on their Android phone because they got an app, who here's done something with cognitive behavioral therapy? All right, a couple hands, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy is a way of retraining yourself to address things differently, right? And there's a bunch of parts to it. It's not just like, oh, and I do this thing. Right? It can be, or parts of it are removing negative self-talk. Parts of it are reframing goals. Parts of it are dealing with anxiety. That can be visualization of success. Some of these things I mentioned are already part of cognitive behavioral therapy. Right? But it is another tool you can talk to a professional about to help to deal with performance anxiety. Because remember, if you're paying for a therapist, you're paying for their time. You're like, we talk about depression a lot, I do want to get back to that, but I play this game called Amcard, and I'm freaking out during tournaments, and I just pay you $200 per hour of your time. Let me tell you how cognitive behavioral therapy can help you. Right? And I'm not kidding, right? I don't know if it's a therapist, but I do this thing when I go to actual physical doctors. I'm like, my knee's jacked up. Also, I play this game called Amcard, and having trouble getting full extension of my arm, and I'm paying for your time. Let's talk about it. And I have never had a doctor say no. Right? In fact, I've had a doctor say, ooh, let me get a Sharpie, right? And draw out like, all right, now this is the joint, here's the muscle attached here, and here's how it is. Actually, let me get the nurse to bring us a chart, and I can show you on the, like often, like not often, sometimes they get really excited, I get all sorts of great information, right? But use that. Also, there are apps. There's cognitive behavioral therapy apps you can download. There's some that are free, there's some that will charge you money, don't use those, that you can use to help with these things, right? It's a useful tool for sports psychology, for depression, all sorts of things, right? But it can be a tool we can use.
Most, if not all, professional sports teams have a sports psychologist on staff. So it's like just for their emphasis, like it's a normal thing to like want to need when you're doing something competitive, because you really do put like all of yourself into competitive endeavors, whether it's like just the sheer volume of training that you have to be able to be successful in the professional career. So it's definitely a thing that's important to look into the professionals and top athletes and religious.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you mentioned that, because just like they lift weights, they also do mental training, and as you said, they all have psychology. And this isn't a new thing, right? This goes back to, I think it started in like the 90s, right? Some teams were like, our players are like, some of them choke during a game. How do we deal with that, right? How can we make them, they missed a free throw, and now our, $7 million a year player is in his head, and now he misses next year. How can we fix that? And at some point, someone went, why don't we talk to a psychologist? And there is a person I quote a lot, especially when I'm teaching the female fighting classes, Dr. Colleen Hacker, and she is a psychologist in sports psychology. She was one of the people that did that for the women's volleyball team, and they freaking crushed the gold medal that year, right? And people were like, how is your team so together? And she's like, well, it turns out if you're having mental issues and focus issues and anxiety, there's this whole field of study that takes care of that, right? And as Tim said, it's a normal thing, right? If you assuming you can get like some time alone with Ottinger or I only know hockey players. So I'm not mentioning really old guys like Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, right? And you're like, hey, did you ever use sports psychologist? And you're like, oh yeah, Dr. Smith, Dr. Jack, whoever it was. You're like, this guy really helped me out, right? I learned these things. I have these techniques I use. It's now just common, right? So just like you're like, I want to be an elite amp guarder, right? That is another tool you can use to treat this like elite athletics. Right? I'm not saying you have to. We're not elite athletes, right? Like we could all clearly be in the Olympics, right? We can gold medal in amp guarding Olympics, internationally. But generally no, right? But you can still treat it like that. And certainly if you're doing it in professional sports, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for us. So these are definitely techniques. Okay. All right. So therapy. Next is developing a positive explanatory style. And I wrote their name down because I just thought Martin Crew was a fun name. But their idea is that people who usually explain bad events by causes that are stable in time, it's going to last forever, or it's global in effect, right? It's going to ruin everything. It's going to undercut everything. Right? These are what are called negative explanatory style. Right? And they also use things like internal. Oh, this is me. I screwed up. This is my fault. Right? They describe bad events that way, and they describe good events in unstable, specific external causes. Right? What that means is unstable in short time. Well, that didn't go well, right? That one thing, not it's always going to go that way, right? Specific, not just that thing. Oh, that wrap did not connect the way I wanted it to. Right? External causes. That wrap didn't connect the way I wanted it to because Tato got a good block on it. Right? They're describing the good things that way. That is a negative explanatory style. A positive explanatory style flips the script, right? Things that are bad, you describe with unstable, specific, external causes. Things that are good, you describe with specific, long-duration internal causes, right? Oh, I won that tournament, right? Well, that's because I did pretty well. I've been practicing hard. I put some time in. That's really going to pay off, right? Why'd you lose the tournament? Well, you know, Tato got a good block in, and then that happens, right? That way you approach things, the way you explain your reality, when you talk about how your life is progressing, that frames your mindset. That frames the way you think about things. The way you think about things frames the way you feel about things. And so framing those good events in that stable, specific internal causing can really help you again change that mindset. So those are coping strategies. Other coping strategies. How do you handle stress or anxiety or pressure in a healthy way?
So I don't think it's a great style for everybody. And I think one of the things to think about is like you're going to get like a lot of different frameworks and approaches, and you should like try them on and decide it's not for you. That's fine. I think for me, a while back, I realized that like tournament anxiety and things like that. Your emotions on some level are actually not really something that you can control. Like you can't talk yourself out of being angry, or you can't talk yourself out of being anxious. You can decide what you do with that energy. But like it's, I read a lot of Stoic philosophy, and they talk about those emotions being basically the same thing as like a natural force, like moving water or wind or something like that. Like you feel that way for a reason, right? So what I started doing is like just accepted those anxious emotions and not trying to control them, and saying like, okay, that's gonna feel real bad, and it's not gonna kill me. Like, it's not gonna hurt me. And if you put everything into a tournament and you lose, like I don't try to soften that blow for myself, because like it would be, you have to be a sociopath for that to not hurt your feelings if you trained for like 6 months and then someone cheated and lost. But I think it's just for me, it's just a matter of like, it's just a matter of like, so what? Like, that's gonna feel real bad, and that's not gonna kill me. And I think just having a commitment to like facing that withdrawal of emotion. But my goal becomes to just face that big emotion with dignity, just absorb it out until it's gone. When it's gone, it's gone, and it's fine. And usually, like, feel motivated after that. You just give out a day or two, get yourself some DoorDash. You want to drink, have a drink, that's fine. And the day after that, just get back to work on stuff.
So I focus on two things pretty heavily on this list. The first one is somewhat ironically, because you talk about you should do this all the time, but mental rehearsal for failure is an enormous part of how I cope with things. Is I will go into a tournament brain and then every round, okay, so I'm going to lose this round. That's okay, because if I lose the first round of single, I can still pick up some points in flow, and I can do okay in board, and I can really like expand out and open and full and be fine. And if I win, great. Right, I go to the next round, like okay, like I can lose this round, I can still pick up points and be okay. And if I win the category, fantastic. But I never have to prepare myself for success. So I prepare myself for failure. So if I lose, I go, okay, so I thought that might happen, that's fine. And I can just keep on going through this. And if I win, then it's just like, oh good, that happened. So that is a big weird thing that I do. And I understand that. And then the developing of a positive expansion style is something I do a lot of. Honestly, this is something I think I started practicing with video games, but instead of saying I lost because I screwed up or I lost because I suck, it's going, oh, I lost because that guy got a good shot. I lost because that person performed well. And you can acknowledge the fact that I gave them an opportunity, but also acknowledge the fact that they were good enough to capitalize on that opportunity. And especially in a game where like I am reasonable friends with like 90% of the people I'm fighting at the end of the tournament, I can be happy for my friend's success. I lost because Ben beat me, and it was great watching Ben really pop off that Ben. I lost because I gave Ben an opportunity, and Ben jumped into A range and swung, and I died real bad. And that's an okay thing to do, to really recognize that like in a game that you're playing with a bunch of your friends, that your failure, to talk about failure being a bad word, you not winning is a friend's success. And that's something that I'm really very good at, I guess is the best way of describing that. So, yeah.
I loved the way you were putting it with your friends. One thing that I've done to keep my head cool when I'm like doing some intense spars with people and I really want to win, but I need to keep my emotions level. Because if they get a good shot, even if it really makes you upset, just be like, man, that was real good, and get real silly. Because like the first of that is like a lot. I am upset. How dare you? But like a lot of the times, if you just act pleased with it and just go through that was really fun action. A lot of the times your thoughts and emotions will actually like follow that action, and it can get you to, it's not always that like your thoughts and emotions precede those actions, and sometimes it's like a loop where if you can break that frustration and that thought emotion action loop by just changing that action, you can get your thoughts and emotions back on track.
Yeah. Really, really helpful for me personally. All of that works very well. Because there's like that damn is going to come out of your mouth, and the tone that it does can determine the next several things that happen in a line. Because the difference between damn and damn is not that far when you're first starting off at the sport.
And it also that external validation of people. Remember, and this is something you said is really important. Your failure is their success, right? First of all, don't be jerking right on their parade, especially as you get better and better. Right? I remember one person, they stabbed me, and they were jumping, like there's a picture of them jumping, they have no legs, they jumped and they're so excited. Like, I stabbed Glen! Right? And they're celebrating, right? And I'm like, yeah, it used to. Now I'm like, I celebrate enough success that I'm like, awesome. Because in my head, I'm not like, I'm a failure. I'm like, Glen, just made that person so happy. I'm freaking Santa Claus over here bringing joy, right? One stab to the torso at a time, right? But when you start developing that attitude, that mindset, right, it does make it easier to be happy with people, even when you haven't had things go your way, because you're like, well, look how happy that person is, right? It also helps if you're like, that was a great shot, not because I screwed up, because you did something great. I would much rather lose to someone who did something amazing than someone who's like, I didn't know what sort it was, and Glen's a moron, so I just did this, right? I'm gonna be like, no, I did right, and I stabbed Glen. I'd be like, that was cool, good work, right? The the better the shot you kill with, the happier I'm gonna be, right? If you do something amazing, I'm thrilled to be part of it, right?
And it's interesting, right? Like when people do celebrate the win, that's also an acknowledgement that they hold you in high enough esteem that they are celebrating having beaten you, and you can kind of like massage the blow from losing to be like, oh, like it's really cool this person thinks so highly of me that they're jumping up and down.
And that's also, you're right, exactly, right? If you're that excited about beating me, you must think I'm amazing, ego bigger. Right? But that works like when I got my warlord, the person I beat, Terminus, right? He was happier than I was. I earned my warlord, and he was happier. He's like, oh my God, Glen, this is awesome! I've got you a belt favor already, right? He was wearing it, right? He's like, this is the best day ever. I'm like, you have 2 kids, 3rd best day ever. You're married, still 3rd best day ever. But first of all, that clearly that made an impression on me, right? But he may have felt confident. I don't know that, and that makes it easier, right? It makes it easier for you to be positive, making that positive self-talk, that self-compassion, right? All these things we talked about are easier if you're looking at it as someone else's success, not your failure. Also, people just like you better, right? The guy who every time they get killed is like, awesome shot, right? Good step, good fake, I bought it, right? You're like, I like that guy, right? They're much more enjoyable, much more pleasant. You're feeling bigger, you have more people to fight, which is a win for you.
Sometimes when someone gets really good shot, it really upsets me. And I think that they're going to pop up. I like to pop up more though. So I think like this shot actually kills me. While I'm doing slow motion, rolling away from it in the appropriate distance. It's good for them, it's good for their morale, it's good for their practice. All good things is not it.
And note that kind of the attitude here, it's okay to have these feelings, right? You don't have to be, no, you can only have happy thoughts when you die, right? If you do, awesome, right? If you only have happy thoughts ever, maybe adjust your medication. But it's okay to be like, oh, I got killed, that sucks, right? How you deal with that immediate emotional response, how you process it, whether you nurture that negative response, whether you acknowledge it and move to more positive, like Tana's been describing, that's what's critical here. We're not saying you can't have negative thoughts, you can't feel bad, you can't be upset about something. What we're talking about is how do you deal with that? How do you respond? How do you move forward? All right, any questions? All right, final step. Oh, question.
I have a small question for me coaching. Sometimes someone will give me a really good piece of advice, and I understand that, and I'm internalizing that. And then they move on to a more advanced concept that goes completely over my head, and my eyes kind of glaze over, and I'm okay. What should I do in that situation?
So my response when that happens is I have a small brain. Is I will say, whoa, too much. Like the first piece was awesome, but that's all I can really work on now, right? I appreciate the knowledge. If you want to remember that for next time you see me, that would be great, but I'm going to be able to process that, right? And what you're doing there is you're not rejecting their knowledge. You're going to be like, no, I don't want to hear your stuff, right? You're being honest. You're like, that's too much for me, right? You're thanking them for the thing. You're saying, hey, you've done a thing for me. I appreciate it. And now this is beyond what I can handle, right? Most people will get the clue, right? This is AMCAR, and not all LARPers are good at social cues, which is okay, right? That's not a dig at them, a little bit of a dig at them. But that's just part of the reality, right? And so they may be like, well, let me simplify it. You'd be like, no, one is all I'm gonna work on. The thing you gave me is great, I'm gonna work on that, but I'm gonna focus on that one thing, right? And just kind of redirect.
And I think it's important to note that is more coachability to be able to establish, I can't do more than this right now, than to nod along while they explain more. Because that is, if anyone's ever coached a team of anything, if I'm talking and you're not getting anything out of it, please, love of God, stop me so you guys can work on what I've already given you, so that we can continue to grow. Because I'm wasting all of my time and effort to explain something that is doing nothing for you. So, that is absolute better coachability than being like, oh, okay, please tell me more, and then you just, you watch it run from one ear out the other. That's not helping anyone. Certainly not you, certainly not them.
And in the same vein, being coachable doesn't mean not having boundaries, right? Being coachable is, if you come to me and ask me for advice, and I give it to you, don't just reject it and tell me I'm wrong. Right? I mean, if you have a really good point, if I'm like, yeah, you should whip your shot, you should be like, well, actually, that's bad, because you're going to lose the 10 yourself. And that is, here's the medical background, here's the kinematics. I'll be like, oh, fucking rock on. Let me write this down, right? But if you're just like, no, that doesn't work, I'm like, it just did, right? That's being coachable. If you're just fighting, I go over like, yeah, I watched you fight, you made some mistakes. You have no obligation to be like, oh, tell me about it. You might be like, that's fine, I just want to fight, I don't need you coaching. Right? That is not being coachable. That's having healthy boundaries. And depending on who you are, again, this is the gender problem, you may get a lot more unsolicited coaching than you would like, right? And it comes with skill. Like, I never get unsolicited coaching. I hardly ever get coached when I ask for it, right? But when I was younger, I got more, or newer, right? But when I was a newer fighter, I got more of it. The female fighters, especially ones that interact with a lot, I see a lot of unsolicited coaching, right? There is nothing wrong with being like, I appreciate what you talk, but I don't want to talk to you. And if they don't get that, there's also wrong with being like, I didn't ask for your help, you suck, fuck off, right? That's a boundary, that's not being a coach, right? It's okay to have boundaries, it's good to have boundaries.
Unsolicited advice is like always criticism. It's not okay to remind people of that. I say something that like unsolicited advice is always criticism. I'm not dismissing that. No, you can say it most of the time.
Yeah, boundaries are totally good. Good question. Other questions?
That's the easier question.
Yeah, I'm like waiting for Jan to sneeze. I'm like, go, but I'm gonna say bless you. I'm on this. Give me, come on. I got
Hiding from me then.
look up. That's sometimes true.
That doesn't work.
It doesn't work. It works for me. Maybe it's the beer that's pulling your face down. Right? Counterbalance.
Setting a boundary.
All right, I appreciate that. Because a healthy friend will appreciate boundaries and respect them. And if they don't, then you need a stronger boundary than you would have done. Sorry, I'm from Texas. Right? That's our default. Right? He needed shooting, Your Honor. Oh, he's dismissed. All right, so I'll edit that out. I'll edit that out before I get convicted because I'm not in Texas. So game day. How does this actually apply on game day? Right? By game day, I mean tournament day. Whatever day where you're doing the stress thing is outside your norm, right? Or maybe it doesn't apply. Battle games are stressing you out. You're like, man, I'm trying to be the best wizard I can, and it's freaking me out. Right? Whatever. Right? There is no wrong place to use this. But the analogy I'm going to use, or the example I'm using, is tournament day. It's game day. We got a tournament going on. Right? What do we do? Right? So pre-game, before things start, right? We can do a warm-up, right? Sometimes it's the physical act of getting moving to help reduce stress, right? Now that doesn't mean rage reduces stress, right? Who's here has heard of rage rooms? Fun. Completely ineffective according to the psychology, right? Does not make you less stressed, does not make you less angry, except for the fact of doing something fun. But you can also just go out with your friends to a bar and play pool, do something equally fun. The destructive act, the raging, does not make you less angry, right? Although ironically, cussing makes you hurt less when you're injured. There's good science on that. So if you're badly hurt, you may swear, but if you're angry, swearing won't help. But that warm-up, a little bit of physical activity can help. Right? Second is highlight reels. Right? This is kind of envisioning success if you are bad at envisioning things. Right? In fact, here's a good. All right, I want everybody open your eyes, close your eyes, however you want to visualize things. But I want you to think of an apple. Picture in your mind an apple. Right? Where you got the apple? All right. Now, open your eyes. I'm going to ask you what you saw. And I'm just going to pick people at random. I'll start here. We'll describe it though. Like, was there a leaf or a stem? Yeah. Was it floating in space? What was the picture? Paint me a picture with words. Okay. Ken?
Chris, what I saw is like almost a painting. It was like an actual apple, just a painting, and there was like an apple crawling out. I don't know why.
Okay. In the green and black, what did you visualize?
I had pictured a small red apple with a hint of green on it, a lot of gradients, and a couple of paper.
All right. Was it on a plate or just kind of floating in space?
I was in a white background on a table that was also white.
Okay. Did anybody not actually visualize? They thought about an apple, they had the concept of an apple, didn't actually see a picture of an apple in their quote-unquote mind's eye. two of you, right, and one baby. You, three of us, are the only people that are crazy in here, right? It turns out there's a small percentage population, which apparently includes you two as well, and definitely includes me. We don't have a mind's eye. When people are like, oh, visualize an apple. I think of an apple, a concept apple, like, well, apples are red. What kind of apple do you think of? Well, now think of Honeycrisp, fish Honeycrisp. I don't see a Honeycrisp in my mind. That's crazy. I don't hallucinate, right? So there are people like you guys, right? I want to point out, you guys aren't crazy. There are people that actually see things. When they read a book, they see a movie in their mind. Somebody's described like it's a battle and there's two swords. They're seeing two swordsmen, right? Which is why those fuckers don't really understand, right? It's like a movie with amazing special effects all the time. I would read I would do nothing but read, right? But where's Glen? He's still reading. Is he like, should he eat? He's like, he's got an IV now, right? So yeah, all you guys with mind's eyes, screw you guys. But that's just kind of a little fun side psychological story. Some people don't have a mind's eye, it's us three. Everybody else does, and I found this out this year. I always assumed when people said, oh, picture this, that they were speaking metaphorically as opposed to think about an apple, right? What is an apple? Okay, well, I'm thinking about Honeycrisp because I like Honeycrisp, right? I know they're red. I'm not picturing it red, but I know it's red, right? In my head, these are just thoughts I have about what an apple is. And then I found out these fuckers are all actually seeing an apple. Lucky guys. I'm still mad about it. But anyway, that had nothing to do with mental training. That's just my own personal trauma coming out of me abusing you guys up. But where that ties into this, right? Visualization. You can do a highlight reel, right? Go back and see in your magic mind's eye, right? The times you've done cool things and been successful. Those of us that don't hallucinate, right? You can get a little video clip on your phone, right? Have somebody take some videos of your fights or good thing, and just watch a few cool fights that you did, right? You hallucinators can also do it with the phone, right? But it's called a highlight reel. It's something people use in sports to help them get in the mindset and think about what they did right. Visualization and our mental rehearsals, we talked about them already, the visualization, mental rehearsals, failure, visualizing success. That's why we do these things pre-game, right? To reduce our anxiety, reduce our stress, reduce our fear of failure or fear of success. Final thing, this is something you mentioned as a pre-game ritual, and that is, you mentioned as a pre-game thing, is what's called a pre-performance ritual, right? And that is a thing you do the same thing every time, right? And it's how you get in the mindset. Way back in the early days of AmpGuard, when AmpGuard was much less inviting to women, and there's some of you women are like, how can it be less inviting? But it used to be much worse, right? And there was a group of women that all fought together down in the Celestial Kingdom. It was called House Oregon, and there's also attached to that House Midas. But they would all take the field together. They would get together, they would all talk to each other, they would all put their knee pads on, they would all gear up, and they would take the ditch field together as a group. That was their pre-performance ritual. And anything like that, maybe it's what you do with your buddies, right? You all do some dynamic stretching, don't do static stretching before performance. Peter will talk about that tomorrow in his awesome class. But do something, right? It may be as simple as, like, I take my fingers, these are bigger blisters. That's part of my pre-performance ritual. It gets me in the mindset that now it's game time. I park all the things I'm thinking about, right? I do research. Is Donald Trump going to cancel another one of my critical grants? Right? We're trying to cure Alzheimer's. Apparently, that's not important anymore. So, those things I'm worried about, right? And I put gas in my car where I drove here. Yes, I did. I'm not stressed about that. It's controllable, right? But the things I might stress about, I park those. I get in game mode. These are things that remind me to do the thing, right? And these don't have to be sports specific. These can apply to other things, right? If you are a student, right? How do I get in the mood for test day? When I'm going to take a test, how do I get in test mode, right? Again, you can establish any ritual. Maybe you set your pencils out in a neat order, right? Maybe you eat a pencil. I don't know. But some people chew things with their nerves, right? But having that ritual that you do before you do the thing helps you get in the mindset to do the thing. Right? So those are pre-game rituals. That's your favorite. Doctor. What pre-game, not before, pre-game rituals? You mentioned something. Let me recap.
Pre-game rituals, I hate because I feel like it keeps my muscle spirit going without costing me a lot of energy. I'm talking about like right before the tournament, I'll find my spot, walk back and forth, over until they call me, and when they call me, I'm like, then moving around, my body temperature is high enough that I'm not like sweating and tired and stuff. I think it also is kind of scary for other people to watch this. I can have these people order, so I can do that as a possible preference too.
You should flex too whenever you step out.
Like a posting
Yeah.
oil up.
Yeah.
Spray tan.
I come here next year.
Yeah.
Doing it again, super barbaric and basic. I will step into the ring and I go and I'll swing, I'll hit this shin, and I'll go over, I'll hit this shin, and then I'll slot myself on here, and I'll go hit myself in the hip, and just go through like a couple different shots that I can throw, and then I'm set.
Does anybody else have pre-game rituals they do at the beginning of the day to help them kind of get in the mood?
I pull some karaoke on YouTube and I'll sing like a bunch of songs. I'll get myself like to start feeling confident in radio. And then right before I get out of my car, I'll play like World Wrestling Federation theme songs.
Okay.
Like Ultimate Warrior or something. It's like, yeah,
Good, good. Anybody else?
I usually like to start a craft. I do belt weaving, sashes, this and that and the other. And sometimes it's super awesome just to shut my brain off and be repetitive motion over and over and over until I'm ready to go.
Okay, great.
Like more in general, when I'm about to go out to the field and just fight, putting my belt on puts me into the right so I get out to fight.
Okay, good.
I'm a freelance writer. I like to go, before I write, I like to go for a walk just to kind of like clear my head a bit. And like, that's kind of my, I guess my main critical idea before I write anything. I go for a walk on a car.
Good. And that's a great example of doing something that's not amplified. It still is a ritual you do to get you in that mindset. Now do a thing, especially writing. Writer's block. Everybody's having to write a paper in school is like writing can be hard. So, excellent.
So I do this with wrestling, but wrestling principle that my company will do sort of like a version of like wrestling practice, like a Shark Tank, where it's like a pyramid where like one person is stuck in there the whole time.
Okay.
You do that, and then I kind of elevate like there's like quick sprints from like one end of the like the first end of the line that way. Like one end of the other, like very good learning and then
Great. All right. Next thing we have, right, is bowing in, right? This again gets kind of that idea of like a ritual to get you started in, right? And that comes from in martial arts, you literally bow to the mat, thank it for saving you from falling over the mat. I did jiu-jitsu, I said, okay, well, I bow to the mat. I just do it because the guy who beat me up does it. He's like, we bow to the mat. I'm like, yes, sir, don't hurt me. All right. So that bowing in, and it can be as simple as that. It's a simple thing you do to get you in that mindset. And then during play, right? How do we stay on our focus? How do we deal with mistakes? How do we do it, right? The first thing is again to the ritual pre-performance rituals, right? If I just step out in the field, there's two things that you can pick up. Well, one's sword board, one's shield. If I'm sword board, you'll see me brush my cheek with not my hand, I was on my shield. But imagine this is a shield, brush me with a shield. What that does is allows me to remind me of where my shield position is, but also be like, okay, I'm in position, I'm ready to fight. The other thing to do, and I just did it here, a little bounce of the ball with my feet, because that tells me, are my feet centered, is my weight centered? These are things that, in addition to being my pre-performance rituals, but they're also things that have an actual material benefit for my fight. But they're doing double duty. They are mental things that get me in the right mind frame. They're also things that build my confidence because they remind me I'm doing this right. Oh, my shield's in the right place. My feet are in the right place. I'm doing great. Positive self-reinforcement, positive self-talk. I did a good thing. Also, that's a mastery goal. I'm not saying did I block a shot, I'm like, did I move my shield in the right spot? Did I move my feet in the right spot? These are things that I can control. So those are some of my pre-performance rituals. Right? If you're seeing a tournament, you may sometimes see me do this right before we engage. I'll be like, all right, ready to go. You're like, why is Glen so bouncy? Did someone give me caffeine? No, that's my pre-performance ritual. It's not when I start, showing up for the tournament day. It's before the actual fight. Have a pre-performance ritual you do right before an actual fight?
I like to just hit something. I just slap like this under my shield, like this a little bit.
Okay.
Just to, there's just something about the tactile feedback. I'm not like trying to dash my fists together like I'm gonna punch you if you don't take hot shots or anything like that. But there's something about just feeling the impact on my head. It makes me feel like I'm ready to like catch their shots with my fist and block correctly, I guess.
Okay.
So the hitting myself thing, and then I'll bounce back and forth for a second.
And there's this certain time when you see movies where the guy cracks his neck, it's like, oh, now you're gonna get it, right? I can't crack my neck, and I don't want to. I only have one neck, and I'm gonna break it. Cracking it sounds scary, but that's an example of a pre-performance ritual. That's the thing you do right before you pitch. Then, and another thing that can help is breathing exercises, right? It can be simple as big slow in, hold it, 5 seconds, breathe out, right? Changing your breathing can help you find calmness, right? It's often a thing that is mentioned by therapists, which I'm not, as a step to help deal with anxiety, panic attacks, things like that. Right? Again, don't be like, oh, I can solve panic attacks now. But changing your breathing, and what I mean to that is, look at a breathing pattern, right? And your watch, my watch has one, right? If I'm feeling anxiety, I've got a breathing pattern on my Samsung Galaxy watch here. I can be like, give me that breathing pattern, right? But it can just be simple as breathe in, good posture, right? In fact, let's all do it. Everybody, sit up straight, good posture, make your parents proud. If you have a bad relationship with them, make me proud. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. May feel a little more relaxed, maybe not. But that can be a thing that can help with your help you calm down, right? Help you control anxiety, help you kind of get a little more stuff. Then I also said, what happens if I actually make a mistake? I just screwed up and my anxiety went whoop, right? My stress, my negative self-talk, how do I handle that, right? And one is that breathing exercise can help. Another thing, this is important, is what's known as parking your mistakes. Right? When you park your mistake, it's the same thing as when you park your car. You go somewhere and you park your car, hopefully you're coming back to it, right? You're not just abandoning the car, you're like, well, I'll just put that there and never come back. You're putting your car somewhere, you're going to do something else, you go back to it. That's when you park your mistake. You go, you acknowledge mistake, well, screwed up, should not have kicked Tato in the face, he looks real mad now, right? Maybe I'll run. But no, I made a mistake, right? I'm like, oh, I was going to go for a dark side. Tato read it. He got the good block. I got killed. Now it's 1-0 and a best, 2 out of 3. Feeling some anxiety now. I've been thinking about the fact that I screwed up shots. Now I'm going to screw up another shot. What do I do? Right? Well, I don't just go, well, not going to worry about it because that doesn't work, right? Don't be upset about it. Useless, right? Instead, what I go is, okay, I'm upset about the mistake. I'm a little worried about that. I made a mistake. Right? Acknowledge it. And then you say, well, when I'm thinking about that now, I'm going to think about this after turn. Because we don't ignore mistakes, it's how we learn, right? Fighting is a competitive sport, you learn best from mistakes in sport. Successes are harder to learn from, right? Which again, important mindset shift. That mistake is a valuable thing. It's not like, oh God, I got this mistake. It's, aha, I want to keep this. But as Tato actually once told me, he caught me trying a new shot in a tournament and yelled at me. It was a CG tournament. You and I were fighting sword and board, and I tried something new. And you're like, "Are you trying a new shot?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Don't try new shots in tournaments." I actually cared about because I won the tournament because you told me to do that.
I should.
But I don't want to give up that cool opportunity, which again, I will think about the mistake. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to park it. I'm going to say, I got this mistake, I'm going to think about it later and deal with it later, right? And that makes it easier to let it go. Because you're not saying, I just won't think about it. Because, all right, don't think about an elephant. Who here's picturing an elephant? Yeah, because I told you to think about it. It's hard to not think about something when it comes up, right? But I'm like, all right, think about an elephant. Now think about a camel. Who's still thinking about the elephant? No, you're thinking about the camel, right? You switch, you're like, I'll think about the elephant later, right? We're doing the same kind of thing with parking a mistake. We're saying, I made this mistake, I acknowledge it, I will deal with it later. You're not lying to yourself, don't lie to yourself, right? Because you'll know if you're lying. It's your brain, you can tell, right? What you say is, I will deal with this later. This mistake is not a failure, it's a learning opportunity, which I want, but I'm gonna park it over here in the parking lot, deal with it after the tournament, right? And then, after the tournament, when you're less emotionally involved, right? It's not this immediate thing, it's a thing that happened an hour ago. Much easier to be less upset about things that happened in the past. You've got that time heals all wounds gap to help solve the injury, right? Then you go back and look at it like, okay, what can I learn from this, right? And going back to it's important. Otherwise, you'll know you're lying about parking a mistake and you won't believe yourself and you won't be able to park it, right? So parking that mistake for later review can be a way to help handle mistakes. The final tool we have to handle mistakes is, again, another ritual, right? We are not crazy cultists over here. My wife is kind of in a cult, she's a rogue. But I'm not in a company, so I'm not in a cult. But mistake rituals are little things you do to reset yourself. I hear this because I don't watch basketball. I find it really boring, and I wish I did, because there is a famous basketball player. I don't know if he still plays because I don't know basketball. But his mistake ritual when he missed a free throw was he pulled his socks up, right? And I read that, and then I watched basketball, and I could not stop seeing this guy pull his socks up. I'd be like, socks! Right? Every time, like, he missed a free throw, socks, right? He'd miss a shot and get, and foul somebody, like, socks, right? What that did is that's a little ritual, and all you're doing with that is this thing I do when I park a mistake, come back later. By having a kinematic, which I mean you move around, thing you do that helps you link that to a mindset, right? And it helps them park that mistake. Mistake rituals are a very well established tool in sports psychology to deal with mistakes. And again, you're parking, come back to it. You're not like, well, now it's gone. I mean, if you could do that, great. This is why I ignore it, forget about mistakes. I can probably do that because my memory's terrible. But most people have better memories than me. But parking, having a little ritual says, okay, now I'm back in the game. It's hard to pull your socks loose. So,
one other aspect, like it was a quote that was the best how elite athletes are made, and you were talking about free throws and other like accuracy related tasks in terms of it being like quiet eye, they're like using a performance ritual to kind of get themselves in the mindset. And if I am remembering this correctly, it's been a minute since I've read it. Another factor of the performance ritual is to just make you take your time in that task. Because like it's kind of like picturing the elephant thing. If I say you need to take your time when you're doing this high pressure task, if you have a pre-performance ritual that just needs a little time, but you have to do it, it forces you to slow down. I think that's one of the other benefits that they have from that specific archery and target shooting, things like that.
Good note. Do you have any like mistake handling? How do you handle making mistakes?
So this one's actually kind of funny. I mentioned earlier as a water polo player. I'm going to assume no one's been to a water polo game before because it's a pretty safe assumption. I am wrong. But you're in a pool, it's a very enclosed space. The sound echoes very badly, and as I mentioned, I was a goalie. So when someone scored, there's not other than being drowned in the cheers of your failure. Right? So I would always do the same thing. I would just exhale until my ears would be underwater. And I would wait there for a second. I would float myself back up. And that was my failure ritual in water polo. So when I started marking afterwards, that's how I was going. Pause with an exhale for a moment, and I would come back to it, like, okay, we're good now. So that is my ritual.
Alright, so those are kind of our during playing feeling, right? And finally, the post-game stuff, right? It can be very useful to have a bowing out ritual, a wrap it up, right? But it can be as simple as I take the tape off my fingers, right? You take your belt off. But something that now gets you back out. Because you don't want to get in and then stay in, because now you don't have you don't flip the switch in the direction, right? So we want a ritual that says, okay, in the ritual, I got in the mindset, now it's time to go back to regular real world. I'm no longer in this Amcar tournament mindset, I'm now in the go out to dinner mindset, or the, work on a research paper mindset, or whatever the other mindset is, right? You're bowing out of that situation. You're doing a little ritual that says, I'm now done. Right? And this stepping out ritual actually has a side effect, or the effect of helping emphasize that stepping ritual. Now you've got basically a book in. Also, post-game, this is when you review the mistakes you marked, right? Because if you lie to yourself, you're going to know you're not going to review it, and maybe that will work, but there's a good chance that will sabotage your mistake marking, right? But that's what you go look at. Also, it's a great time to learn, right? And this may not have to be like right after. This might be that night, the next day, right? But that's when we have to do our mistakes. And also, just another thing, just talking out with a friend. Right? If If you've got a nice drive home with a partner or friend, somebody you talk to, you're like, oh man, how did that tournament go? I did this thing and I felt bummed about it. Somebody just talking it out, right? That's half of therapy. And that's like almost, I don't know what percentage it is. But certainly part of it is talking things out. And so just communicating and sharing those feelings and those experiences with another person can also help decompress you so those things don't build up and become a source of avoidant behavior. That's all I've got. Dan.
You don't want to talk things out with people because you don't feel like you have people that you want to talk that out with. It's like sometimes like you're in a certain position where you might like looking at a certain way, maybe just like introverted, don't like doing that. Journaling is really powerful for that. You can have that conversation with yourself if you want to. I've been journaling for a number of years. I always think religiously I take some breaks, because usually it's every night, and sometimes I'll just go into like here and there. But I think that that's really powerful, because if you have a lot of those negative, all-encompassing thoughts and stuff, when you write it down on the paper, read it like someone else thought of it, you kind of see like how ridiculous it is very quickly, and it gets very easy to read it yourself and just writing it out, because it forces you to like slow down, and you're not having a million thoughts all at once, like 1,000 and going into our voices like putting you to shreds. The act of writing makes all of those voices kind of coalesce into a single one that is a lot easier to address than just like us in terms of feelings and internal.
I also want that one. It's weird to be people.
You're doing great work.
Thank you.
So for me, like a lot of what I try to concentrate on, a lot of what I try to do with things, is just recognize that like keep front and center. This is a game that I play with friends, and that uses an enormous amount of the stress and the like upset feelings and things like that. That like this is a weekend hobby. This is not who I'm going to be tomorrow. This is what I am right here, and that's fine. But this is an activity I'm playing with friends, and that I want to keep that centralized on my experience. I want to do it well. I want to kill my friends a lot. But like that is part of the game that we're playing together, not the real life awful thing that we're now going in the trenches together. So I try to keep that very centralized in my thoughts while playing it. So.
Questions about anything we talk about? All right. Yes.
So there's a lot. I feel like there's a lot of good advice for people that are high performing and competitive, and going and expecting good tournaments. But is there anything specific to people that are not very good and are losing a lot? And I don't know, like it's the question of I'm trying to improve, but am I always just going to be bad?
Okay. You want to start with that? Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, I had a lot of self-talk. Tell myself, first of all, fight. You're not a bad fighter. Stop. Second of all, I was never interested in ever, because I just told myself, I can't do this. I don't have it in me. 10 will never be wrong. And I just love fighting, so I'm going to fight. Again, focus on like the idea of what can you control, and what was it the not looking at
Process,
goal.
not outcome.
Yeah, the process. Just focus on getting better. It's just, I want to get better. Like, I eventually went to some event, try art thing, and somebody took me aside and said, when are you going to run with? I was like, I could never, this is never going to happen. And they said, you're smoking all of this. We're the so you should really think about this. And so like, you have this, I'll never be better, I'll never be good, I'll never expect to win. You're a fighter. You're phenomenal. You're pretty good. Like, seriously, you're a fighter. And like, keep working on those skills, keep getting better. And like, pretty soon you'll be like, man, I'm not in this tournament. You'll find yourself in that position where you're like, holy shit, I'm actually doing this. That's all, that's all it is just focus on the process of getting better. She'll get
general concept of what if you are on the lower end of the skill, right? All of this stuff does still apply, but it may be a little bit less urgent, right? If you're a first order warrior, your self-worth is probably not really tied to how well you do in a tournament. If you lose a tournament, you may be above where you're like, oh, I failed amp curve, right? You're like, oh, I lost, that's fine, I wasn't good. You didn't have this unrealistic expectation, well, I'm gonna win the tournament, right? So some of this may be less urgent, right? But it's all still happening. And some of it can be more important because it can be demoralizing to lose a lot. When I fight Florentine when I first started, and I reached the point where I already won a little tournament, and I was pretty good, but my Florentine had some flaws in it. So when I spent a summer in Dallas, and I worked with Spin and with Jay Lee to completely revamp my Florentine and Brett, right? And there are three amazing fighters, and I started over with Florentine doing it totally differently. And I would get murdered endlessly. I feel like that was 4 hours of fighting. I hit one guy. That's because he was watching and I missed the guy I was aiming at. Right? It's demoralizing losing one, right? And that's where some of these mental toughness things come into play. So it is still useful, but it's kind of a different context, right? A different motivation. Right? But again, that self-compassion or something is really important. That not having negative self-talk. Right? All these things become really important because they help you stay engaged while you're at that lower skill level. So I would say that there has probably been a bias in talking about high end because that's our perspective where we're looking at this from. But all of this will still apply no matter where you are in your skill journey.
I would say very briefly also, like, certainly some like survivor bias with the playing with the red dots and all of that on the fact that we've all gotten there. But we all started getting real bad in tournaments. Like no one starts playing the game and wins their first tournament and just keeps on accelerating from there. It just doesn't work that way. So while we are here now, like, yeah, I remember going out and like my first tournament playing against someone that I thought I had no chance again, walking out like, oh my god, I need that person. Like that is a part of our story too. So, will you warlord one day? Maybe not. But a lot of this really doesn't solely apply to the climate of warlord, but a lot of it is talking about avoiding burnout and avoiding negative self-thoughts and things like that. And that's going to apply just as much whether you are seeking to win a tournament and upset because you didn't, or just going out to fight a tournament because it was there and not necessarily having an expectation of winning because of that. So that's the thing I'd like to add on. Like, we did not start off like just fucking creating this game and then the awards come out of us eventually. That's not how it happened.
Other questions? That's a great question. All right, that wraps up our class then. Thank you for staying here. We stayed a little bit longer than normal. There's a lot of talking with Glen's involved. But thank you all very much.